It's Thursday, it's 11 a.m., it's QT Conversations. And this is what I've discovered. This is actually the Qualified Tutor podcast. This is what we do every week. Am I right, Dee? And that's why you're so blooming good at it, because you are the podcast queen. Um, there you are. So we're live on LinkedIn. We're recording this, goes on YouTube, goes in our newsletter. And actually people are watching and following and all of those things. And the reason why they're doing that is because we, in our gentle way, are making change through these conversations. And the change that we're making, as you know, is all about raising standards in tutoring together. And that together piece is the bit that really makes my heart flip, because the texture and the quality of the qualified tutor community gets better every year. And these conversations are the beating heart. Well, also the WhatsApp group, but that is just pure drama. I mean, goodness me, you guys are balmy on there. This morning's highlight was Holly Humphrey's out of hours, which does not say I'm on annual leave. It says I'm on the beach in Dubai, na 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 na, which is cruel but fun.
When did
So
she post that? I didn't see that.
yes, she did. It's in, oh, I know why. Sorry to do that. It's in the business members group because somebody was talking about recruit. Sorry, I know you can't cope with the FOMO. I know, I know, I know. Look at the face. I'm going to share it with you. So, what are we really doing in this conversation? Mohsin,
Hi guys,
what are you doing?
Hello.
I'm doing great. How about
Looking
you? How's
smart today,
everyone?
right?
Is
Good.
it?
Oh,
White is probably a little of
Kelly's
my
mum sending
opinion.
him out on a date later.
Well, I take those decisions now myself. That's why I'm more of
Whoa,
working.
that's big. That is big. I've got my
Yeah,
MBA. I can make my own dating decisions.
yeah, kind of. I mean, it's still not safe to say that, but yeah.
You're right, it's not. So my lovelies, this is our opportunity live on LinkedIn to discuss what's going on in the tutoring world. I have been planning the qualified tutor Christmas party. I'm calling it what am I calling it? An online party for tutors. Because those of us who aren't celebrating Christmas still have ugly jumpers to share. And there's gonna be games, there's gonna be prizes, it's gonna be fun. Kaylee and I are hosting. It's gonna be very neurodiversity friendly. There will be some men there, Mohsin. You'll be glad to hear, because you know what the
Uh-huh.
qualified tutor community is like. Um, and as inclusive as possible. We're really factoring in all the neurodiverse needs of our membership in planning this event, which I think is really through and through. My life is thoroughly overwhelming right now. We've got business works happening currently. They're changing the skip outside my office window, which is the great big truck that takes the full one, changing it with the empty one, brings out the inner 4-year-old in me because I really want to watch, because it's such a cool thing. And there's builders stomping on the roof of my house from 7:15 every morning. These are not complaints, because what I've noticed is that I thrive on a certain amount of chaos. I like it. So I just finished my writing course and I'm signing up for the next one. I've got the building work. I've got 5 mad children, each one who is taking me to the next level. I'm calling it professional development, basically. And the dog, who is by far the best behaved person in the house, except at 3:30 in the morning when she barks. And I have mercy on my lovely neighbors, my lovely elderly neighbors next door, who never complain and always let me park on their driveway. And so I'm doing the night shift with the dog at the moment. So that is my personal optimal level of chaos. Before we dive into the themes for the day, I would love to hear from you about what optimal looks like.
Well, my life's definitely not optimal at the moment because I'm still waiting for my hand to fully heal up. So I daren't do anything that might, because it's pulling on that part of my hand. So I've been completely out of routine with my gym stuff for over a week, which is messing with my head, big style. Um, and I'm just kind of feeling that I don't like December. I'd much if I could wave a magic wand and wake up on the 1st of January, that would be an ideal solution for all of this for me.
Yeah,
So I'm just
Jack
it's
is the
grilling
person who hates.
and bearing it until we
Yeah,
come out the other side.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Mohsin, what does optimal look like for you?
Well, I think that's probably the hardest question to answer because
That's how we roll.
yeah, I mean I don't know. It's honestly not really thought about it. I don't know the way I've gone by since the past 2 3 years more or less is just been it's been more of work and just trying to manage your own stuff. So yeah, I would probably say optimal is I'm just trying to manage between work and some personal self time. Just like Dee mentioned, having a little of gym or maybe having some sports or going out doing something. So it's like I mean everybody was actually texting me asking, will you be taking off during these these vacations coming? And I was like, no, because just that there are a few things I got to take care of. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place answering that question, to be honest. I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure is a really healthy place to be and much better than blagging an answer. Much respect to that. Jenna,
Yeah.
what is
Can you
optimal
hear me?
for you?
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, right now, optimal is not my current day, which is no power and the alarm screaming in the background and a dog on top of me and mobile and no routine. But optimal is chaos often for me. I thrive in chaos.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And it's such a broader perspective of what we're asking from our students, right? So this
Mm.
morning, Odette and Katie and I met, and we were planning before we were planning the QT Christmas party, I arrived 4 minutes late, and they were talking about Odette's balmy children, like the key the technical term for her children is balmy, delicious, delightful, charming, and which is such a lovely relatable thing. And I was saying, Kaylee's talking about her little 2-year-old and one on the way, and Odette and I like, don't tell her number two's harder and madder, and madder. And then we were talking about how we as we know, we ask our young people to conform to boxes, systems, routines that are all about people management, but not about optimizing. So I thought that today we would talk a little bit about what optimal looks like for our students, for our young people. We've spoken a bit about safe, skilled, and supported in the past, and I feel like that's a really healthy way to start, where safe, skilled, and supported means different things for different people. What feels safe to me doesn't necessarily feel safe to the next person, because, as I said, I thrive on a little bit of being out there, feeling like I'm right at the bottom of a steep learning curve. That for me feels right. And if I'm not there, I feel like I'm not stretched enough and I'm not optimized. And I'm really, really aware of that right now. So if Dee, you see me in a blue funk because you know what my blue funk looks like, that's what's going on. I'm not stretched enough. Um, and so I'd love to talk about what it looks like when your students are right there in that space of I'm stretching them enough, and what it looks like when they're not. So one more thing to drop in before we start exploring what does optimal look like for your young people, and how you make that happen for them is my 12-year-old, who you guys all know is home at the moment, had a session with our wonderful Christopher Banham, who's a QT member, who is a history, RE, and I want to say philosophy tutor, but it might be something else. And Christopher talks about himself as a person who was recently diagnosed with autism. He crashed in school. He was a school leader for a long time. He worked extremely hard and presumably was extremely successful because he's a very relatable, articulate person. And when he crashed, he went nonverbal for, I think, 6 months, he said, which for a person who's running a home with a partner and children is no joke. And so when I pinged him last week and I said, Daniel is really enjoying the lessons with you and he knows exactly what he's learning and he's covering awesome content, but he's getting slightly antsy, and I can see it from my vantage point. I can see that he's getting antsy, sort of wandering off onto different windows in the computer, that kind of thing, right? So Christopher said, well, what can I do that suits my needs, my neurodiverse needs as an autistic person? And Daniel's, oh my goodness, Jenna, your dog's eyes, you're killing me. What suits the neurodiverse needs of the student who is ADHD, bouncy as anything? And what was first interesting to me was that Christopher's first response was, if I'm not the right tutor for him, just let me know. That's fine. I won't take it personally. And I actually pushed back and I said, no, I think you are the right tutor for him. What can we do? And he said, well, we could do something with Lego. So off they went and they built a Lego. Jenna, how did you describe it? It was a Lego a Lego. Sorry, I'm losing my words. I've lost it. Okay, it's coming back. It was a Lego presentation of the storming of the Bastille. Yes, was it? Yes. And no, you don't need to dive into this conversation because it's live on LinkedIn. I don't want you on social media. So it was a representation. So Christopher had his document camera on so that they were building simultaneously, and it was factually accurate, and so they worked out the whole model, what happened, where the key players were, what the significance was, all with concrete tools in their hands. To me, that is an astonishing adaptation. Would you agree? So let's start exploring what optimal looks like for your students and what you do to make sure that you stay there as much as you can, because you're a person too. Mohsin, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, I think the first thing that you got to understand, I think that's where you just started the conversation off with, is that, everybody's different and everybody has, their own optimals. And you, as if, you being in a state, or you being in a position of being an educator, or, just tutoring someone or mentoring or something, I feel like you got to first need to understand that. So maybe for me, just like all of us, we said, and I think that is the reason we're actually here, is because all of us, let's say we just mentioned the fact that maybe chaos is kind of like optimal for us, but it could not be for someone else. I mean, that's totally fine. So I think that the first thing you got to, and that's what I learned a lot, and that's what has been helpful in this whole tutoring journey. At least for me, it's been helpful that you get to see a lot of different perspectives. You get to see a lot of different things, maybe which you never thought actually existed. The truth
Yeah.
of the matter is that, because we just think in a certain way. So I feel like firstly is understanding what an optimal could be for a particular person. And just like you just mentioned the story of your son, I think you got to see that whoever you're teaching, how do they get easy, or in what ways you can bring them back into the lesson, or how do they feel comfortable. And so I feel like, again, it's you got to probably structure your lesson in a way that you're also talking a little about their interests. You're talking a little bit about how they're feeling. You may be trying to tell them some stories about yourself that they can relate to. And I think that kind of helps you foster an environment, number one, where they start trusting you, where they probably would start taking you as a friend. And then if and that's why I feel like I think teaching is a much bigger of a responsibility. It's not just, let's say, me sitting down and teaching your networks thing. I mean, it's also me maybe trying to tell you, or maybe trying to help you understand how you need to go about things, how it's fine to not do well some days, how maybe some days the best that you can do is just try and show up, which is totally all right. So I feel like so where I'd want to end this answer is that I think the first thing is realizing that everybody's optimal is really different. It's like you cannot. It's the same thing that says that somebody can fit in a square, maybe somebody can fit it in a circle. You'll try to fit in pegs into a square, you'll just mess them up.
You'll just mess them up. You'll bash the little edges off them. Jenna, go for it.
It's not just that optimal is different for different people, it's that for the same person, optimal is different day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. And the beauty of not being in a traditional classroom setting is being able to adapt like that, to pull stuff out of the air or out of your back pocket or switch over to something that matters. Because everything we learn, it doesn't matter how neurotypical or how neurodivergent you are or how supposedly intelligent or academic you are or not, if you are invested in something, you're gonna, like, even on your worst day, you're gonna be able to engage in something, whether that's just doing a coloring and like
Hold on, you've made an assumption there that I'm curious about. And Mohsen, I need you to know I took down tons of notes from what you were saying, but I didn't want to, I wanted to hear everybody's initial thoughts first. So I'm going to pull them out in a second. But when you just said there, Jenna, about, you can do something today. Why is it important to do something? Is it important? Is it okay to just write off a day? Is nothing something that you could do today?
This is a massive question. And yeah, there are going to be times where the thing that you are doing, the something that you are doing is choosing self-care, is choosing to go stare at a wall, choosing to just exist.
Yeah.
And this idea that you need to be productive all day, every day is so, yeah, it makes me want to like properly fisticuffs the whole system, because it's what broke me. It's what put me in a psychiatric ward, right? Like, you can't, for so many of our young people who feel so trapped, you end up fighting yourself because there isn't a thing to fight against.
I was speaking with a friend today who said that in a therapy session recently, she realized that she has such high expectations of herself, and that's where all the exhaustion, and no, actually her phrase was disappointment. She says, I constantly disappointed, and now I'm doing it to my children as well, and I have these high expectations from them because they're my children and I made them, and I have high expectations from myself, and I'm constantly disappointed in them. Yeah. And are we at a place? And I all, for me, it always comes back. So I have this thing at the moment that the world is obsessed with dogs and phones. And in a way, dogs are the antidotes to phones because of mindfulness, because of presence, because of concreteness, all of those things. And, we have this sort of wonder at the back of our minds, is AI going to replace tutoring? And we all know that it's not, because we know that it's the humanness that makes us magic. But I think that there's something, I've totally lost my thread. Dee, where are you? I'm very glitchy today.
and it's really empowering for me to see someone like you, who I in very high esteem because of the way that you hold things together. And I was reflecting on this on my walk this morning about the way that you manage these conversations. And I am every week completely in awe about how you ask questions and then you pull stuff out, and you really and that you're then able to kind of meld it all together into something really helpful at the end of it. It's amazing. But for you then to be vulnerable and to demonstrate that actually there are days when, like today, it's just totally glitchy and that's okay.
Yeah, and that goes back to what Mohsen said about modeling. Mohsen, you said sometimes you just have to show them that some days are not optimal.
And it's
And I've
showing
done that I've done that several times with my students this week,
And
because
how's it been?
I am not having an optimal week.
How's it been?
And it's because it's students that I know really, really, really well.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
wouldn't do that with a student who I don't have that knowledge of who they are as people.
Mm.
It's
And
all
that
about
and that again was what Mohsin was saying earlier about asking them the questions and telling them about you, building the relationship, but also getting to know them sufficiently that they have context when you're modeling, that they know that you're not just an unreliable person. It actually is coming from a place of additional reliability. Mohsin didn't like something I said. He's left. Jenna, go for it.
I think that there's something really powerful in being a human and being honest about humanity and what that is and what success actually really looks like and is. Success isn't pain. No pain, no gain is a fallacy that is damaging and ruining humanity and people. And I think that, like, for me, all of this conversation is so much at the foundation of what I do. It's so core to me. And I am someone who was that gifted and talented child that was pushed like that. And to this day, that level of perfectionism is really, really hard to fight every day. And I think the thing that I find myself like wanting to get through to young people the most is that you don't have to have 100 things ticked off your to-do list in their entirety in order to feel like you've had a successful day, in order to have been productive.
And
if
yet,
you are broken and you are glitchy and you are spending 10 hours and tears and frustration and making yourself feel unwell to achieve something and be productive, that isn't being productive. What is productive in that moment is taking time to just not to just exist, to go do some coloring. And if you feel like, in order to give yourself that permission, you pick, like, for example, I've got a science student and she's really struggling with the idea of doing formal science, so I printed off a ton of coloring pages. And I mean, this is a teenager, 17, 18-year-old young person who's very academic. I printed off science themed coloring pages where it's the inside of cells all like
nice.
wide, and it's great. And she was like, this counts as doing a science lesson. I'm like, yeah, if that's what you need right now, that's what we'll do. If it's putting on a podcast or putting a video on in the background that you can't even concentrate on, but so that you feel like you've done what you wanted to do. And that's the bit that's important, is the feeling. It doesn't matter if you've ticked 10 things off, 1 thing off, 100 things off, or you've changed your list entirely if you don't feel it.
I love it. Now I'm going to push you. Okay. I have an adult who lives very close to me, who is ridiculously productive and starts the day at 5:20 in the morning and doesn't go to sleep until I think there's a correct time of going to sleep, which is probably at around 11, and basically just marches through their life and is as opposite to me as could possibly be. And yet I think it's important to remember, when we talk about being inclusive, we must also include those people who do like boxes and are square pegs and do like to march around their day ticking things off lists. And we are only through and through authentic, inclusive people if we can remember to include them too. And I would like to suggest that the reason why sometimes we struggle to is because we feel threatened or judged
or jealous or
jealous.
Like it's the comparison is the thief of joy, right? Is that these are the people that we are told are the right people, the perfect people. And I think it doesn't, that's why I say it doesn't matter how many things you've ticked off, whether you are that person who does plow through like that. If you feel like you are successful, if you feel like you are enough, that's the bit that matters. It doesn't matter what you do to get there. If you are feeling like you're enough, because you are enough, feeling like it and believing it is the hard part. If that's going to look different for everyone, right? And day to day, year to year, moment to moment, event to event, that's going to look and feel different. And it's about building that feeling, that status quo, that repertoire of tools and fallbacks, so that when you feel dysregulated and you feel put off that path of being enough and feeling like you are doing enough and achieving enough and just being enough, that you know that you have things in place that you can fall back on that make you feel solid again, because
Nice.
it doesn't matter where you are enough.
Okay, I really, really want to come back to that point of you are enough. Dee, I want to hear from you, and then I want to hear from Mohsen. But if we can come to, if this conversation takes us to a place where we can explore what enoughness looks like, so that we can overspill that to our students. Wow. Go ahead, Dee.
And this is something I have always struggled with, that I struggle with the I am enough thing. And when I get to a place where I'm believing it, and then something change, and then that I am enough, and then something changes, and what I think might help to get me back to a place where I believe it, it's not working anymore. And I struggle then with, well, that worked, so why is it not working now?
And is that like the exercise? Would that be an example of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And now exercise has been taken away from you, and it starts unraveling your sense of self.
Yeah, absolutely.
Repertoire.
And that's what I'm lacking, is the ability to self find what else is going to be helpful, which is why, as a coach, I need regular coaching to help me explore all of this. And, you know, one-to-ones with the likes of Jenna and other members of the QT community, dropping those into my life at regular intervals is what's helping. And
yes.
And it's recognizing that needs to happen.
Yes.
And it needs to be, sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's completely unplanned, and that's often even lovelier. But also young people who, because they're younger, don't have the life experiences that we have, how do we help them develop that repertoire of tools and everything else that is going to enable them to, when they're in a place where life is glitchy, that they are able to by themselves put themselves back in a place that then helps with that regulation.
I got very into an approach called innate health, which is also called the three principles, and it's worth looking into. Jenna knows it. It's worth looking into because it's an educational approach rather than a psychological approach, which basically says that our baseline is fine. Our baseline is health, and what happens in life is a process of unlearning. And if we can just remind our young people of their innate health, so rather than, you know, mindfulness is a process of strategies, innate health is much more about understanding that all you need to do is remember that your very existence is coming from a place. I've lost it again. Mohsen, go for it.
Well, again, I think the problem, the way I see it, the problem stems from, you know, the standards that we guys have sort of already set in. And by we, I mean a community, probably, you know, I would say maybe 20 years older than me, 30 years older than me. At least that's at least the way I see it. So, for example, I mean, I would be, let's say, very fond of a certain celebrity. And the truth is that all I get to see about the celebrity is his or her shine. I get to see that he became an overnight success. I get to see that he I don't know, got a villa over there, or he just bought an island, or God knows what. And what I don't ever actually get to see, and that's truth for, I feel like most of the students, um, at the young ages, they don't get to see the problems. They don't get to see what they've been through. They don't get to see the downsides. So I feel like we've just sort of made a very distorted um, community where the expectations are just so misaligned. They're borderline unrealistic. And I mean, that is what I think, at least now I'm like very comfortable talking about the issues, let's say, that I've had. I keep on telling people that, yeah, I scored well, but there were times when I did really bad due to some personal reasons or whatever reasons. But there are maybe very good things that you can, let's say, see, or, a great sheet which looks really good. But, there have been some other issues that I had to deal with. So I feel like we just need to start appreciating the we just need to start appreciating what you can say, the unshine, if I would say. We need
Nice.
to we need to stop.
Authenticity.
Exactly, we need to actually just not appreciate or be fond of people, or be fond of things which shine. I mean, that's probably my whole point. We got to learn about the stress that goes on. We got to learn about the thing that it's okay to fail. It's okay to be all over the place. It's okay to be glitchy. And that's one place where we can actually, just like you were mentioning, we can talk about it from our own experience. Because I know for a fact by now, maybe 5 years back, if you would ask me, I would have said that no, 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 this guy's perfect. No, 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 this person's perfect. But I know for a fact that if I talk about all four of us right now, I'm sure that we have our stuff. And at least by this point, we've been through at least something in our life which has absolutely placed us off the whole plate and made us realize that, okay, it's fine. You can recover, but it's okay to be in that place as well.
That's right. That's right. And then what does recovery look like? And where do those experiences sit then? Do you wash them out? Or do they become part of you? Do you build around them?
Well, that's a hard. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's just like everybody might have their own ways of dealing with it. Um, I think for me, the way it generally goes by is that first part is generally denial. Whenever something happens, I'm actually in absolute denial. That kind of I spend some time in that, and then things kind of start getting back to it. So I think that the truth is that you can never get rid of them. You grow around them. But the only thing is, I think the way I've learned is that you got to pave through a particular problem. It's easier said than done. And the truth of the matter is that I think so. Let's say one thing happens, whatever, it could be anything. It could be like, I don't know, failing in a particular subject, which is totally normal, even for the smartest people. That's fine. I mean, so what happens is that you maybe feel like that, okay, that you got to go through it, but maybe sometimes it's going to take a little bit of time for you to actually adapt to that. And then your body's probably going to gain that strength. It takes time. You got to give yourself some time, and then you can probably go through it. So the idea is that um, you cannot totally wash it off, but I
Okay,
feel
so
like
hold on. So this is what you've just given me here. When you said about taking time, it makes me think about process and the beauty of process and how process is in a way the opposite of shine, right? So I don't really want to see the shiny person unless I can see that they weren't shiny when they woke up this morning and there's been a journey. So I'm not judging shine. I just think that it's not healthy unless you can also see process. And I think that what I love about these conversations is there's sort of an unmasking that happens here. What are your thoughts?
Have you heard of kintsugi?
Only the Michael Morpurgo book. So I think you need to tell me.
Um, in Japan, they repair broken things
Yes.
with glue that has gold in it. So when they put it back together, the repaired thing is
It's more
more
beautiful.
beautiful than it was before it was broken.
So I'm working on because we're doing this building works at the moment, I've got to become an interior designer for a minute, which is hilarious because I don't care, but I have to care. Yeah. it's in service of my family to care, and I'm thinking about all their needs and the way that they move around the space and how I can make them comfortable and optimize things for them, for me, for the harmony of all of us. And there's one of the ideas that I've come up with is family stories. And because I don't want to be a person who all of a sudden is fussing about curtain pleats, but isn't it interesting to plan a home around family stories and actually build and communicate an identity that's not about perfection? It's about just something really unique, that is beautiful because it means what it means to us. And that's what I'm trying to tap into with this like interior design project. And so where you say it's more beautiful because it's got gold in it, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, but it's going to be it's going to be asymmetrical, and it's going to be a bit of a random thing, and the other ones in the shelf are not going to match it. And that's fine because it has its story. And really what it's telling you is somebody broke me on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Somebody dropped me. And that actually, it's more than just talking about imperfection or growth experiences. It's also locating me in time and place. It's also about process. So I didn't realize that this conversation was going to become as deep and profound as it did today. But I told you that I wanted to come back to enoughness, because there has to be purpose in all of these conversations. I studied philosophy at university, and it was purposeless and made me sad. And so let's see if we can pull together some purpose here. And Dee, what you said before about how much you appreciate the way I host these conversations is really helpful, because it's about making connections, and it's about elevating our thinking to make it purposeful. So let's pull back on that theme of enoughness that Jenna spoke about before. And Jenna, if you could start us off by, in your language of talking about I'm enough, it was axiomatic. You were saying that it's true. Yeah. So an axiom is a statement that is by definition true. It is a foundational principle. And for you, it was very, very clear in that statement that I am enough is a foundational principle. Can we start from there, please? And what that means to you as a person, and whether it rubs off on your students, which I deeply believe it does.
It's easier to say it and to support people to believe it for themselves and to believe it myself. And that is true for so much of what we do. And it's something that my students remind me of. They call me out on it, on telling me that, you're showing us how to feel like we've done enough in terms of even personal hygiene. Like for a lot of neurodivergent people, personal hygiene is a real challenge. And that includes for me. And I'm honest about that. And the way that I try really hard to demonstrate to young people what believing you're enough looks like day to day is being more mindful and more intentional and more deliberate about the language I use to refer to myself, and how honest I am with the people around me about my optimal, my current state of being, and what that looks like, and what bits of it are still showing that I am enough and that I'm doing enough. And I think when it comes full circle, I think that's when that you've made that difference, and that young person starting to see that for themselves. And I think that it takes a village, right, for all of us. And the reason we do what we do is because we've had those challenges, and we want to make these differences for the young people that we didn't have ourselves. Like, I wish that I had teachers like you guys when I was growing up. I wish that I had someone who didn't just see the percentage score and my grades and see my value that way. And I am open with my young people about my journey and that I am struggling still to continue that journey, but that journey is constant, right? Life is constantly changing. It doesn't matter what you do. The one certainty is that there will be change, there will be difference, and it's finding, and that's why I always come back to a repertoire, right? It's not just about having one thing about you that is grounding, that is finding your footing again. It can't just be going to the gym, it can't just be that exercising, it has to be other things. It can be for example, your such brilliant dungarees, right? It can be your brightly colored socks. It can be those little things and finding those little things and always having something. So for me, one of the things I did during my GCSEs, which I come back to now in a very different way. So during my GCSEs, I had these two little magnetic felt elephants that were gifted to me by some friends. And I kept them in my pocket during my GCSE exams and I would squeeze onto them for dear life. And, you know, now I still have those elephants and I know exactly where they are. They're over there, still packed up because I haven't found the right place for them yet. And I use them to remind me of who I am and what my journey has been. And it's finding those grounding moments, whether it's the right, like some fun stationery, right? Whether it's just having that fun list on the wall of self-care things. And I have a thing with the young people that I do where in your day, especially like if I'm working with a young person who's home educated that I'm working with in their home, they're in their home all day, every day. And that can be a lot. So you do something academic, sure, but you do something that's just fun for your brain. You do something that's fun and good for your body. You do something that is silly. You do something that is, I call them an adventure a day. And it's having the breadth of, and you don't pick it up when you're struggling to feel enough. You don't pick it up when you are discombobulated and not feeling like pick it up every day that you can, just like learning to deal with like a panic attack, right? You can't train a dog in the situation, you have to train for a situation. And it's building those little nuggets and having a reference point. If you are someone that won't be able to look internally and find that solidity internally, which most of us can't, you have someone else that can remind you. You have that list on the wall that you go to, or those. I have a few different systems that I use with different young people, and we swap it out. It's about novelty as well. It can't just be the same.
Fantastic. There's Jenna,
going back to the same thing.
There's so many nuggets here that I'm beginning to feel overwhelmed. But what I've understood in principle is that your phrase repertoire means a repertoire of things that remind me who I am. You've frozen. But at least you're frozen with a nice face on. There you are. You're back.
Ooh.
You're back. Your Wi-Fi went a little bit wonky a couple of times, but always at really key times. So when you said discombobulated, you froze. So it said it was like discombobulated, which is sort of what it feels like sometimes. Mohsin, what are your thoughts about enoughness?
Well, I think the idea of enoughness also keeps on changing from day to day and from time to time. Um, Personally, I think it's kind of hard for me to even uh, maybe have a certain classification as to what would be enough. I just know that when you're trying out, when you're actually in action, and that could be something just like Jenna mentioned, that could be something like going to the gym, that could be something bigger and harder. You do start feeling that way. And I think only with more and more and more experiences, you can actually realize that what is enough for you. Now, the deal breaker, which I've absolutely started hating now, and I feel like it has to be taken a lot more seriously for the younger generation, is that we've got so much of fake stuff to see around us. So maybe it's like I've spent the whole day, and trust me, it happened with me. So I mean, I could easily say that let's say I've spent the whole day, I've worked like what, 10 hours, I've done every bit. And then all of a sudden, I'm like on social media, okay, let's go check it out. And I'm like, okay, this happened. Okay, this happened. And till a very big time, I would actually, even for someone like me who's apparently very highly qualified and, ever on the expectations,
Sorry,
it,
I'm
it,
calling you out. Don't you air quote your qualifications. You're awesome.
yeah. No, I
Don't air
agree.
quote it.
Yeah. But my point of saying is that it kind of makes you question that. And but then again, like just I was talking about experience, just that I've just been a kind of a little extrovert. So I've got a good amount of people that I know. So a lot of times now that's where it was a study for me personally. So a lot of times I would, let's say, be talking to a certain friend of mine, and they'd be absolutely all over the place. And they'd be like talking how things are bad, etc., so on and so forth. And I would feel like, okay, man, this is like the worst part of their life, maybe. And then 5 minutes later on, I would actually see an Instagram story coming up, which kind of makes it seem like as if their life is perfect. So my point is that we're just living in a paradox. And I've started taking this very, very, very seriously by now, because I feel like that's what shapes you a lot. I mean, myself, I think Jenna probably was trying to mention the same thing, because it's no longer just about the people I see in my community, because maximum what, there are 50 people in my community? No, they're like thousands and thousands of Facebook friends and Instagram stuff. And it's like, so I feel like cutting it out short, I feel like we got to address exactly nature, nurture, and algorithms. That's the word. So feel like we got to actually start addressing the fact that how enoughness is something that you can only learn from your own experience. I mean, not through comparisons. And I don't know, that's maybe where it
So,
is.
so what's beautiful about what you just said at the end there was that it's almost like you've redefined learning. So you've just said that you're learning through experience, which means so much more than, I'm going to build a brick wall to know how to build a brick wall. You're actually saying that learn. So again, we've discussed before the distinction between learning and education, where education is a formal structure and learning is change, and development and growth. And really, what I put in the chat there is you were exploring the idea was, and I always find this interesting with you, Mohsen, because you're younger than some of the people in the community, and so I feel like you've got more, you're at more risk of, like our students, falling for the fake stuff. And I can see you seeing beyond it. And it becomes really interesting because that's the process of, almost like we're collecting our golden seams. We're collecting our threads that make us process driven. And we talk, and it sounds romantic, but really it's so profound, of an the wrinkles on an old face. Yeah. The wrinkles on an old face are the golden seams.
I agree.
Those are and how, again, like walking the dog is the antidote to shiny and fake, is all those signs of process. Somebody dropped me and I got up again. Or I rolled over for a bit and then I got up. Dee, what are your thoughts?
Oh,
I
ah,
know, this is a big.
this has been an yeah. Um, yes. I mean, my takeaway is that I mean, Jenna's just posted something about reflective learning journals that have overview or quick stats sections. So I need to have a chat with Jenna about this, because it's something that I find hard to do. I can write about my day at the end of the day, but I don't do the hard work of actually thinking about my day and how I felt about my day and the impact it had on me and what I can take from that. Um, so
Wow.
it's been a reminder that there's more that I can do, and I need to find a couple of people who can perhaps help me explore
Fantastic.
that because I don't know how to do it myself.
Fantastic, fantastic. And finding people and leaning on people and that whole, I do feel like this conversation did go through safe, skilled, and supported, because to come back to people and it takes a village at the end is really profound. And as a member of your village, I don't necessarily believe that any of us need to collect more things to do. And that's why I hate sessions that have what's your one action point. It makes me feel like the thinking isn't enough. And actually we know from our young people, we know for that coloring the inside of a cell is learning, because now she knows what the inside of a cell looks like, and that's its own learning. So again, it's this thing about us forgetting that the process is everything. It is life, it is learning, it is mindfulness, it is love. It is enough. Just the being here-ness is enough. The social media post that might come out of it will be a new thing for a new person that may benefit from it. The new activity will be a new thing with its own process. But to walk away from this session saying it's added to my task list actually doesn't make me feel comfortable, because I think that this was a change-making conversation. That's the goal. So I'm going to wrap up. It was bigger and heavier than ever before. I would love you guys to just give me a thumbs up about your thoughts on whether this really is the Qualified Tutor podcast. And that I can sort of talk about it as this is our conversation and this is what we're putting out into the world.
True.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because if people hear this, it will take them on their own journey.
Yeah.
It will because of their own, of who they are and the experiences they have and the gold threads that they have,
Yeah.
it will enable them to perhaps go explore, perhaps think a little bit differently,
Yeah.
perhaps want to talk to someone about something.
Yeah. And I'm calling
We
myself
don't know. The
because
ripple effect is just fantastic.
the ripple effect is gorgeous. And I just want to sort of call myself out, because it's almost like I just said I've added something to my task list, but actually what I've done is I've taken 3 or 4 or 5 things off my task list by saying we're already having a good enough conversation. I don't need to schedule another one. This is where it is. Come and find it. So
Absolutely.
guys are the best. Have a lovely weekend. I'm going to go and choose paint colors, and I'll see you next week. Bye, Dee. Bye.